You can just palpably feel the change when you're viewing the sun in the way that I'm viewing it in the hydrogen alpha wavelength. You can sense that the change is just universal. As I film and I work to provide more evidence of the binary of our sun, there are large numbers of people who simply are not prepared to consider such a thing. You can't let the threat of job loss or other things force you into terrible decisions. They're going to make every effort to reduce population every chance they get.
I'm not into second guessing things. I'm into questioning and inquiring, which is what I loved about your work, is you just put it out there and go, look, you guys do what you want with this information. This is what I see about it. This is what I've come to the conclusion of myself, but that's not your conclusion.
We know the human beings are here, and we know the military, as example, may be 50 to 75 years ahead of what we're aware of. That's common knowledge.
The fact is, reality is reality. Truth is truth, no matter how people want to slice it or dice it or suppress it. It will always win every time. So I'm here today with our good friend and colleague, Crrow 777, and this is going to be one of those conversations which you can tap into that will be fascinating from start to finish. And I am very enthused to hear all the things that you have today for us, Crrow, because you've been around the block and you're very deep in the deep wisdom of what's happening in the world and the universe in general. And your work has been tremendous. I love the way you do things. And what I would like to find out from you initially is where you're at right now, and then how you got there, what stimulated, what was the trigger point to get you to become who you are now? And we'll start with that.
I guess it was in response. I still remember the first time I was contacted for an interview, and I thought to myself, why would anyone want to interview me? And then it was during the whole lunar wave blow up, and the world had just gone, and I can't even describe how crazy it got. But after much cajoling, I agreed to do the interview. And at the time, it was a big channel. It was one of the most popular things that they'd done. So then, you know how it works. People see that, they start contacting you. So I guess it was basically in response to the requests of others that got me going. And then when I realized people were interested, it took on a life of its own.
Yeah, the lunar wave. Can you bring people up to speed on that? Because I think a lot of people don't know about that. When that happened, that kicked it into a very deep documentary of Shoot the Moon. But yeah, can you tell us about your experience when you first discovered that and then you had to do the due diligence to find out it was actually real, it was not an electronic thing?
I actually had an epiphany, and people argued about it for years, but it's not arguable. After I had filmed it, I was like everyone else. How can I explain this away? It's equipment, it's something. And I actually deleted it finally after some time. But that very same day I had the epiphany and I ran out, booted up, restored the clip. And sure enough, the way that I filmed it by chance, here's what's so odd. When you spend 6-8 hours staring at a 3-inch LCD screen pointed at the moon, there are hours where nothing happens, and you don't want to put in all that time and then miss something, because usually when something happens, it's a few seconds, or maybe 10 or 15 seconds if you're lucky. And so I would always keep the scope centered on the moon. For some inexplicable reason, the moment the lunar wave happened, I was looking at the 3-inch LCD. I panned the scope down below the moon, which I don't think I'd ever done that. And the wave started, but I didn't see it because the LCD was so small. I panned back up to the center of the moon, and then the wave went across. The epiphany I had was it's inarguably a filmed event, because when I pan down, I film the start, pan it up, and the wave catches up to the camera. That is, bar none, evidence that it was a filmed event. When I realized that, it shook me, because then it was, my word, I mean, what is this? So I did that in September, on the true equinox in September of 2012. I held onto the footage for a year, and all the people I knew and people that I showed it to, you got to put this on YouTube. I had been a webmaster, among other things, and I was not a fan of social media. Finally, after a year of holding on to that and filming many other things, I consented. And in October of 2013, I put the lunar wave up, and man, everything changed instantaneously. I had to change my phone number, change my email address. Even after I changed my phone number, I was getting calls on my landline, people claiming to be ex-NASA. And it was just ridiculous what happened. So after a year, it starts to cool off a little, but not much. And meanwhile, a month after I post that, the flat Earth blows up, and they're all referencing that footage. So it's got the madness of all that. And so then a year and a half later in the spring, I filmed the second lunar wave and put it up. And the whole thing happens again, not at the same level, but it's like, you're clearly faking it. Oh, you're the only guy who's ever seen this, and now you're presenting us with another one. You've faked this one. Then the other people that didn't think I faked it. But what's interesting is about a month, less than 2 months after the filming of the second lunar wave, I discovered the second sun, and I shot it. And I just recently found that footage. This would happen. When I filmed that, I consciously buried it because, for one thing, I didn't have the same amount of experience filming the sun that I did nighttime and the moon. But the second was, you think the lunar wave's bad, you're gonna tell people you filmed the second sun. So I buried it and forgot about it. So a year later in 2016, I film it with a regular camera on my solar scope. I film it again and I released it. Very low key, I release it, and there's almost no response all that time. But that's how it happened.
Right. Yeah, it's a shocker. And then apparently other people with their cameras as well started filming from different angles and finding simultaneous lunar waves that corroborated it deeper. Is that correct?
I don't know if I'm not aware that any two people have shot it simultaneous, but I mean, by 2016, I think 30 or 40 people had filmed it, something like that. I don't remember the numbers. But what's more is, now that all this time has gone by, it's been filmed in front of Jupiter a couple times and in front of Saturn. And that's a big deal because at the time, I don't know if I was the guy who said lunar wave first or someone else. I just don't remember. But I, at the time, way back then, thought it was peculiar to the moon, and I was convinced it was somehow attached to equinoxes. So I filmed the first one on a true equinox, and then I filmed the second one within days of the opposite equinox. So that's what I was thinking at the time. But the truth is, if I had to name it all over again, I would call it a firmament wave.
Okay, interesting. So and how many times a year do you estimate now that happens?
Oh, I would just be pulling random numbers out of the ether. I have no idea. I don't know what causes it. I guess I'm of a mind that it's probably traveling through the firmament. It's always, what I am aware of and what I would count as a true lunar wave is always two waves, and they're very distinct. Now, for a long time, people argued that it was airplanes doing this. Here's the thing, though. The first time I filmed it by accident. The second time I was filming on purpose, but I kept binoculars right by my scope. So when something happened, I could grab the binos and look up. And I never heard or saw anything. And when you're sitting there for 6 or 7 hours filming, you can hear and see a plane coming. You know how many times I've filmed a plane transiting the moon? And I can't even, it's so many times. I even included a couple of them in Shoot the Moon just to show, but it's not the same thing. As a matter of fact, some of the people who have claimed to shoot a lunar wave, I'm not convinced are looking at the exact same thing. I think maybe I have seen bow waves from something flying that has been called a lunar wave, but there really is no comparison.
They're talking like a vapor trail that is distorting the air lens.
Well, it does make that similar rolling, but it's just not the same. It's not that crisp double wave that is so prevalent. But it's ironic too, because in 2017, Jason and I had quit covering all the false flags, and then Mandalay Bay happened, and everybody was fooled again. So I broke my rule. I went back and I told everyone why Mandalay Bay was fake, and we were with a guy, I'm not going to say his name because he backed off. He had a kid and backed off from online and was threatened with losing his job, but we attached it to Macbeth, the opening scene, 3 witches in a desert. The demon familiar is Paddock, and Paddock's the shooter in the desert at Mandalay. So we out all this, and we're about to release, ironically, episode 77, and YouTube deletes my channel with over 100,000 followers. They put an algorithm up. So before they deleted my channel, if you did a search, and this is back in the day, and people will recognize what I'm saying, mostly on Google products, I actually on Google products. If you searched my name back then, you got 16 to 20 million returns. They used to put a little box up, told you how much time had gone by and how many millions of returns they found. And there was page after page. And here's the reason. All those years of making videos, people would embed my videos on their site, right? The minute they deleted my channel, thousands of embedded videos go 404 error. So those are going to get scrubbed. After a week of that, most people remove them. But they put an algorithm on my name. The day they put my channel back, if you did a search for Crrow 777, you got about 1,200 returns. From 16 to 20 million returns down to about, and that's still to this day. And by the way, it varies by geography. Some of my hacker friends proved that in certain countries, if you put Crrow 777 in a search engine, you got 0 returns. And we estimated that if a place had not heard of me, they would not get a return or something like that. I forget exactly what they said. But Lunar Wave, same thing. Before they deleted me, like millions of returns, page after page. And by the way, now that you get roughly 1,000 returns, the returns are duplicated as close as the second page. It's just the same handful. So this is what they did. And now, if you do a search for Lunar Wave, most of the time you'll never get a link to my videos. And sometimes you get an AI response. I saw one the other day because we just did an episode where I did the search because I was about to talk about it. And it said AI looked at the lunar wave and this was first described in the 50s.
Right.
They're saying, so what has happened online is we may have had an information age, but it was precious short, in a few years at best. What's happening now is, like, if you see these people that make reaction clips, they go on TikTok and get other people's work and react to, they're all playing the same content because it's all been taken over. So what is being shared and reacted to is absolutely controlled. Before TikTok went down, there was all stuff about what was going on with the fires, but they took it over, and that's all gone. And this is symptomatic of the entire internet. The information that you get is approved information, and if you search on any given topic, you can get 20 pages in, and they're still regurgitating what you found on the first page. So the value of the internet for research, unless you're really good at it and know how to get around things, is just really limiting.
Yeah, definitely. The propaganda machine is in full swing in every regard. And if you're mind controlled, you cannot know it, because part of that mind control is to keep you thinking that you're in control of your own mind and that you have your own intellect and you can calculate things yourself. It's like being deceived. If you're deceived, you cannot know you're deceived. It's not possible. So it's a very interesting age that we're living in. And I like the fact that you said the information age was a very short window, and then it became controlled and contrived so that we have to be in our own universe, determining things based upon deep level common sense and not taking anything for granted and question everything. I'm not into second guessing things. I'm into questioning and inquiring, which is what I loved about your work, is you just put it out there and go, look, you guys do what you want with this information. You know, this is what I see about it. This is what I've come to the conclusion of myself, but that's not your conclusion. You guys conclude what you want, and you just left an open forum for people's minds to look at the data and just say, this is what I think it might be. And it's like you pointed out, that the technology that's being used for the extremely fast-moving vehicles that don't have any apparent propulsion in them, traveling information at a very high speed, is not alien. It's human technology. Where are they going? Where did they come from? And why do we not know about that in the normal place?
Yeah, it's amazing to me how easily people want to go to the unknown as answers for things when we know the human beings are here, and we know the military, as example, may be 50 to 75 years ahead of what we're aware of. That's common knowledge. I used to make up little laws for myself to help me think about things. Like, I made up the law of high definition to help me think about all the supposed UFOs that were being filmed. That kind of got infringed on when AI came to be because it undermined what I'd done for myself. But in terms of what we're talking about, I kept trying to think of a way to communicate to people when we're seeing these things. The go-to response should be that's likely man-made. Why? Well, here's the example I came up with. I hike 10 miles into the middle of the desert and I come upon this building, a shack. There's no footprints around anywhere. Looks like no one's been there forever. I walk inside, and lo and behold, on the one table in this little shack is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that looks like it was just made. Who made it? Or are you going to say an alien made that peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And there's the example, and there's the disconnect that I try to put forward, because of all the things that I try to do, I'm probably guilty a lot of saying this is false. But in terms of offering more than that, I try not to, but I really do try to put forward the value of common sense. Even if you're wrong, even if it turns out to be wrong, you've still, in my book, it's still a win. Even if you're wrong, if you have approached it with common sense. Because if you do that, you also have the ability to recognize when you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's all really, at the end of the day, it's results driven. Just like I had to go through on this health journey for the last 21 years, I found out to start with that everything I knew was extremely flawed. Everything I was doing as a result of what I was believing was true. All my actions, all my reactions were very poor. And it was ending up in a physical body that was about to expire. At 46 years old, I was going to be expired by 49. And my thing was, hold it. What is the last day of my life doing 36 months away from me right now? That didn't make any sense. And when I went to the medical institutes, and my oldest brother was a medical doctor for 30 years, and I talked to him about it, and I was dealing with specialists and different doctors in Toronto who were diagnosing me and telling me that I had whatever they wanted to tell me. I realized that was just all propaganda, and that everything, all of the issues that I had with my health were 100% based upon me, not them, not my environment, but upon me. And it was my lack of knowledge, and everything I knew was killing me because I was making all the wrong decisions about what I was feeding my body with. I didn't know anything about detox, didn't understand anything about the internal environment and how the external environment was affecting me. I thought, well, I'm just part of the crowd and everybody has the same things affecting them, but for some reason I'm dying and they're not. And then I found out that tons of males in North America die in their 40s. It's nothing new. The doctors know that, and they just basically put me down as a statistic. When I talked to my brother about it, he said, what do you expect? It's all genetic predisposition. You look like Uncle Don. So my Uncle Don and my Uncle Bob were on my mom's side. They died 2 days apart, one in the other one's funeral, in the same year, and they were both diagnosed with terminal cancer in the same year, and they both died within the 12-month period. And so now I'm being told by my brother, a medical doctor, that I've got the same genetic predispositions my Uncle Don because I look like him and I'm facing all these things and I better get to the doctors and let them help me or I'm going to be dead even sooner. And everything I was being told was like, hold it. Everything I'm being told doesn't serve me. It doesn't answer the problem. I'm a dad with my wife. At that time, we were only married, was that 21 years ago? So we were 21 years married. Because we're 42, having our 42nd anniversary this month. We had 7 children together because we wanted to have a boy and a girl, what we thought. We definitely wanted a girl and a boy. We ended up with 5 boys and 2 girls, which was amazing. And my youngest daughter was only 6 at that time, my youngest child. I'm like, okay, something is super messed up with this picture. Why would I be given this much responsibility? And then my body's going to die. So that was the first wake up. It's like, I don't think I'm going to die. I have to, what is the truth of what is going on? Now, just like you started asking questions. Of course, I asked a whole ton of questions they could never answer correctly. And so I woke up one morning knowing in my gut that there were people on this earth somewhere who had the highest level of knowledge when it comes to natural healing without all these medical interventions. But that still didn't help me yet, gave me a bit of hope. But it made me realize, well, of course they exist, but how am I going to find them? Can't find them. So I just simply spoke out loud and I said, I'm asking to be led to those people. I'm not demanding it. I'm just asking. And if I'm led, I'd like to be able to see them, have eyes to see them and ears to hear. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get my body back and to stay alive, which is how it turned out. Here we are 21 years later, and I met all those people by being led to them, just like you were led to things that you've done. What have you seen in that regard, like where synchronicities and things just stimulated you to go down a certain road at a Y turn the right way instead of the wrong way?
Well, you said a few things there that I think are a big deal. Firstly, in terms of longevity, I've noticed that people that are the happiest, like those people that you see that are smiling all the time, they tend to last longer. My mother was one of those people. I never saw my mother angry. till she had dementia. But you also said another thing, which is my operating guide. Announce to the universe. Always announce to the universe your intentions. And the other half of that, in my mind, is if you truly believe a thing, it is very likely going to manifest. And for us average human beings that aren't like spiritual masters, that's not the easiest thing to decide you're going to start doing. It really takes a lot of effort, but I constantly put my intention out to the universe. It's like why I'm not on camera right now. That is my announcement to the universe that I value my privacy and my God-given rights, and I will be proactive in making that stand in this era where violating your rights and your privacy is like commonplace, happens 1,000 times a week. These are a very important part of my day-to-day living. Every single day I announce to the universe. Every single day I pray. Every single day I take time to consider unconditional love, higher vibration, all the things that I aspire to. And I think it's critically important. I was not always this way. When I was younger, in my 20s, for a while, I had a mindset that it didn't matter what I did because my path had already been paved. I had that mindset for quite some time. And that was due to church, by the way. All the things being brought up in a Christian church, which actually served a purpose too, because as I got older, I finally realized that religion is not spirituality, not where I am in the world. There's a big difference. And to me, spirituality is individual. It is private. Requires no intercessor. I don't need like a head priest or something to be the intercessor between me and the creator. So even early on, when I was doing things that I think are a little far-fetched or on the wrong path now, they end up serving a purpose in the long run. It's almost like you have to make failures to get to a better place. If you didn't make the failures, maybe you wouldn't get there so quickly.
Oh, definitely, yes. The failures are some of the biggest learnings that we'll all have because we know that exposes everything, which is what we want. We want to be exposed to what works and what doesn't work because at the end of the day, it's all results driven. The funny thing happened to me in grade 1. I was put into traditional public schools and I was raised in a very dumbed down Christian family who went to church like 3 times a week and we memorized the Bible. But it was all memorizing things that were changed doctrinally so that we would believe a certain way that that particular organization wanted you to believe.
That flavor.
So when you're young, you just do what you're told, right?
Yep.
And when I was in grade 1, it was about the middle of the year. It was in Sherwood Park Elementary in Hamilton, Ontario. And I was in the middle of the class, front to back in the middle and side to side in the middle. For whatever reason, that's where I got placed because they would tell you where to sit. And that day, our little grade 1 teacher, she was very short, about less than 5 feet tall. She was a Japanese woman. And totally kind, very sweet. And she wrote down the word statistics on the chalkboard. And that's a pretty big word to be talking to grade 1 students about. And she says this word, and she got us to pronounce it properly. She said, I want to explain and give you some examples of what this means. So the best example I could give you is that there's 31 children in the classroom today. And so many of you are going to have a certain amount of life based on statistical analysis of the lifespan of the population at that time. And that would be 1964. And she said that one person in the classroom will have their life completed in their 30s, so many in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And she said one person in the classroom will live beyond 100. And I wasn't thinking anything. I wasn't trying to place myself in any of those categories. I'm just listening. And as soon as she said that, this kid to my left, this Italian kid named Marty, he looked right over at me and he pointed at me. He goes, you're the one who's going to live to 100. And I looked at him and I thought, that's weird. Why did he even say that? He wasn't even a close friend. And a girl sitting next to me, Kimberly, on my right side, said, you're right. You're the one who's going to live to 100. And so I went, well, that was really weird. A little kid, right? Pretty impressionable. And when I was getting sick in my 40s and was slated to be exited, I thought, what does that mean then? I think I'm supposed to live till 100 and beyond. I think. I don't know. It's not like a prophecy or something, but there was something to that. And then all these things took place to then get my body in beyond the most healthy condition I've ever dreamed possible, even healthier than I've ever been in my life. And so that set me on a different pathway. But those things that happen that we see in our life, we remember very starkly, those little timestamps. So it's a matter, I think we're totally guided and directed. It makes me a little bit too maverick sometimes, where I've done things that I place my life in peril, my physical life. I could list many times where I was going to die for sure, 100%, whether it was in a vehicle accident or something that was coming up. And yet I would go through that and come out unscathed. And that always was just made me wonder, wow, you're here. If they wanted you taken out, you'd be long gone. And even if they wanted to take you out, they can't because you're on a mission. And your mission is very clear. You're handed a mission in your life. You found out what it is. You're fulfilling that and you're being led, and there's nothing going to cause you to swerve off course. And when it comes to exposure, the thing that kind of got me to wake up a little bit deeper, just personally, I'm not asking anybody else to think this way at all, but during the 2020, 2021, and all the pressure came on society to do this and do that, and instead of doing one step to get something done, now you got 10 steps. I thought, this is interesting. And I started sticking out of the crowd like a sore thumb because everywhere I went, I couldn't wear a mask. It's not that I was against masks. I just personally can't wear them. And I have my reasons for it, and it's none of anybody's business. But I really stood out. And everybody else in this little town I live in, the 20,000 people, I would be the only one ever that didn't have one on. And it didn't matter where I went. And I knew that was going to make me exposed because if you go into a store, there's cameras everywhere, obviously going to see me doing that. And I thought, well, that's okay. That's actually how it's supposed to be because I don't care that they know. In fact, I'm okay with them knowing that I know, that they know, that I know, that they know, that I know. And it felt like that we're the people who they actually want to leave here. They want to leave us alone. We're not out to get anybody or stop anybody or be against things because we have too much time being for things. We're here to promote the things that are real. We're not here to go and try to shut down big pharma and all that silliness. Who cares about them? And I told people, if you want to put 50 masks on, go for it. If you want to have 5,000 injections, go for it. It's none of my business because I don't want to tell you what to do. And I don't want you to tell me what to do. I want to join together and we can talk about what we do and we have a reason for it. Just like you have a reason, which has a whole set of requirements that you have set forth with common sense as to why you do not want to have anything exposed publicly, which is totally respected. With myself, I'm like, okay, what are they going to do? When we're on mission, we could have 500 guns pointed at us, loaded with triggers being pulled, and there's not a single bullet going to touch us because we are protected. Yet I'm not careless. I don't want to just I'm not going to intentionally put myself in harm's way. At the same time, I know that I'm protected because I would not be alive at all. And there seems to be some force that wanted to take me off the earth many times, but it was unsuccessful. So what are your thoughts around that?
There's a caveat, and I think people need to be careful. A lot of what we see in the coercion fools you into agreeing, into accepting. And whether or not you're on a mission or protected, we have free will, and you can make decisions which will change everything. And I think people need to be cognizant of that. And during COVID is the example, they basically turned the public into its own police force. And
100%.
I wasn't going to wear a mask because it was an insult to my spiritual existence. I comprehend that my breath is my spirit, and I was not going to breathe exhaust fumes all day and block the spirit granted to me by the Creator. And I didn't care who knew it because it didn't matter to me who or what said anything. I got thrown out of more places than I can tell you. But at the end of the day, much of what we see going on in the world is designed to fool you into accepting a thing that you should not accept. I would not stand behind the idea that somehow your path is inviolate because I know that free will exists and I know that bad decisions can lead to bad outcomes.
Yeah, for sure. Every decision we make has to be based on critical thinking, clear thinking, intelligence, and common sense. And we're then able to move through the whole society that is trying to pressure us into doing things that we should not ever have to do. But yeah, what a perfect example of people becoming their own worst enemy and then joining together to become enemies of truth in that whole scenario for those 2 or 3 years that people were subjected to that stuff. And subjecting themselves. Everybody wanted to blame the government, and they're up in Canada. They had the little bumper stickers, F Trudeau. I'm going, are you guys kidding? Trudeau has nothing to do with this. He is a little tiny child. He's a little puppet. He's told exactly what to do and what to say every day. He has no choice. He doesn't own his own life. He's sold out to that system, that beast system, and he was raised in that. And he's a product of that. He had nothing to do with it other than he was that puppet who had no choice. He had a choice, of course. He could have stepped away and ran away or whatever. But he was conditioned so much that he was being used as that inflection point or that transfer point of false information. And then I think Frank Zappa put it the best. He was on an interview one time, and I've searched for it. I found it one time a long time ago, but I haven't been able to find it since. And he was just a rock musician, but he said the government is the entertainment division of the military, and that's all. They're an entertainment division. So he dismissed them because he realized that's not who's running the show anyway. And if you look at the United States, there are thousands and thousands of private contractors who run that country. That's what it takes to run the country, the way it goes, the way that they control things, the GDP, all those things that are taking place. And so I don't have any part of that. I'm not a part of it. No, you're in your universe, I'm in mine. Right now, our universes are meshing with the gears. And we realize that we could support each other and benefit each other and help others, which is the real thing. Because your work is opening the eyes of people to make them think deeper, to consider things that are more important and get away from the things that are not important that distract people all day long with every imaginable platform that's pounding them with information that is controlling their minds.
We had a huge opportunity in 2020, and we didn't do so well. If the majority of us simply would have said no, we would be in a very different world right now. And what's more is, if the past is any indicator on what we can expect, something similar to 2020 is going to come around again. And if we have a society where the bulk of us go along with it, we're going to have a similar outcome. But in the long run, we all get to make our own choices. And what I don't think a lot of people think about is, if energy cannot be destroyed and I am energy, doesn't that imply that I've been around before this lifetime and I'll be around after this lifetime? And if that's correct, the amount of time that I will spend in this lifetime is less than a drop in the bucket. And when you think about things in that vein, it makes the decisions you make now more important, because there is more to come, a lot more to come. And in a lot of ways, I think that the bad decisions that are constantly put in front of us, and much of it is coercion, it's gotten so bad where it's not just trying to fool you, it is like trying to threaten you into doing the wrong thing. You need to make the decisions based on the idea that it's almost like they're trying to permanently pull you into their dark side. And if you do that, maybe it will help with the decisions that are to come. But I've made up my mind. I know what I will do. I don't know the situations that will come, but I know what I'll do, because I know that there's a lot in front of me. Even though in this lifetime, I may not have so many years, my existence goes beyond whatever happens here and now.
100%. And we've been traveling through all of the generations in the form of the soul that was manifesting in this particular era in a physical presence that we're in right now, talking to each other. And energy, as you mentioned, we are energy, and energy is heat, electricity, light, love, real love, unfeigned. And the light always pushes the darkness away effortlessly. Darkness has to take a huge amount of effort trying to suppress the light. And
that's a key point. That is a key point. You could be in the blackest, most massive cavern there is, and a spark will send the darkness fleeing.
Right. Yeah. And so the more we fill ourselves with light, which is, what I learned over the years is that I don't want to think about, I got to make sure I don't get cancer. I got to make sure I don't get heart disease. Shut up. Are you kidding? That's focusing on the darkness. There is only one goal that I set, and it's a very simple goal. It's perfect health, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, environmentally, domestically, financially, because the financial side is just energy. And having a broad spectrum, holistic presence here is, you can achieve perfect health as soon as you set that as a goal. All of the tools, all of the people, all of the knowledge, the wisdom, the ability comes into play to allow that to take place, because I can't generate perfect health personally. I have to have support from everywhere I can. When you were put on the earth, did anybody hand you an invoice where you had to pay for your body?
No, not until later. That comes when you reach working age and you get your social security number, to make a pun.
Yeah, social security. Yeah, up here it's called the social insurance number, SIN. Interesting how they use that.
Well, they're not lying, are they?
Yeah. And then, has anybody been able to figure out how to put an invoice on the air you breathe?
Well, I think they're going to make a run at water. There's certain, I think it was one of the WEF guys who tried to recently inform everyone that access to water isn't a human right. So you can see just how dark the dark side gets. These are inhuman things. And what astonishes me all the time is, if a man like that would have said such a thing 20, 30 years ago, he'd have been done. He would have been done. And yet here we are. There's a new era. And I wholeheartedly accept that when we are firmly established into this new era, whether it's 100 or 200 years or 50, I don't know, but it will be an infinitely better world than the one we have known, because the one we have known has been entirely built on low vibrational controlling ideas. And in the same way that I did unhelpful things when I was young, but I learned from those unhelpful things, I view the period that I'm speaking of in a similar way, because you can't really know what a thing is until you experience it. And so it won't be in the too distant future. This will be a remarkable place to be, maybe even almost magical by the standard we consider now. But I think they're going to make every effort to reduce population every chance they get, which was a major part of 2020. Even just the masking of people. How many people do you suppose had their lives shortened abruptly from breathing their own exhaust fumes all day after day? But again, those were choices we did not have to accept. And the funny thing about that, and this is the coercion part, is I talked to people and said, you don't have to do that. And they said, yes, I do. I'll lose my job. And I told them, you're right, you might. But if they do that and you stand up for your rights, everyone I know so far has won big. But the problem is it takes effort and time. And so even though and the sad part is they were more than willing to lose the small amount of times of the people who were willing to stand up. But you've got to stand up for what you know is right. And you can't let the threat of job loss or other things force you into terrible decisions. You can't do it.
That's right. And it takes courage to stand up. And we have a little bit of courage to start with. What I learned is that you have to build a courage bank account. You have to earn the courage. And then you can encourage others to help them encourage themselves, because you had to encourage yourself along the way, just like I had to. And then we encourage each other. So the more courage I have in my bank account, the more it can benefit you and others, which we're here to do. We're here to bring a benefit to people, not a detriment. And that courage allows us not to be manipulated and coerced for something temporal. Oh, you can't go to a movie theater, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't see your grandpa and grandma in the old age home. Well, they shouldn't be there to start with. And right, so it's having the courage that you earned to fly above all this stuff and to not be coerced and manipulated, and also not to be mean and nasty with people, because I wasn't going to go and tear people up for being coerced. That's their problem. That's their business. I don't let them make their problems my problems. Because what's the point? And they can scorn us and mock us and ridicule us. That's okay. I can handle it because I learned how to handle that. I can also, because you know how the 3 stages go, which is ridicule, violent opposition, and then finally acceptance. Boy, do we ever see a perfect example of that. I knew many people, because I hang around people that are more courageous, and they stood up to their families. They said, I'm not going to take those things that are harmful to my body. I'm going to stand away from that. And they were dismissed from their family for a couple of years. They weren't allowed to come around accused of being murderers because they wouldn't do all that stuff. And then after it was all over, their families came to them and said, thank you for standing up. Thank you for holding your own. Thank you for being courageous. And we're sorry that we treated you like that. We see now that was a very bad decision. And then it became accepted. And we go through this all the time. So it's just a matter of knowing.
It's astonishing the level of information control that's existed in the modern and recent world. There are books out there like The Invisible Rainbow is one of them, where they show flat out how many times studies have been done to take someone with the flu, take their bodily fluids, their snot, their breath, coughing, all of it, and never once could they transfer the flu from one to another with bodily fluids. There are so many studies, and he cites a number of them in the book, and yet that information could have vastly changed the charade that was 2020. But at the end of the day, information is so controlled that even when you point out that the information exists, many people will still be resistant because it's not what they've been told and it's not what they're familiar with. And then in many ways, this relates to my telescope work right now. As I film and I work to provide more evidence of the binary of our sun, there are large numbers of people who simply are not prepared to consider such a thing. It's just way too far afield. And this, to me, is a symptom of information control. It changes us.
Right. And the fact is, reality is reality. Truth is truth, no matter how people want to slice it or dice it or suppress it. It will always win every time. Truth always wins. That which is real will always win eventually. It already won to start with, but then the realization that is what will always win, and that will be the only thing that ever holds like an anchor in the storm, is truth. And when we tether ourselves to truth, and like you have not tried to get people to take sides with you at all. That's one thing I've really noticed about your work is like, you guys are going to do whatever you're going to do. Don't take sides with me. Don't take sides with yourself. Don't take sides with anybody. Take sides with what is true and real, because that's the anchor. And you got to stand up, because if you don't take sides with truth, you're the one who pays the price that you can't afford. And when you do take sides with truth, you get a massive reward. So what would you like? It's the old principle of sowing and reaping. A farmer plants seeds in the spring and reaps a beautiful harvest in the fall. If he doesn't plant seeds, he doesn't get, or if he lets weed seeds come in, he's going to have a problem. So getting all of the correct thinking that holds in the storm, no matter what, it's unshakable. It's like standing on ground that is rock solid, that doesn't have earthquakes underneath of it, versus standing on a shifting sands that doesn't give us a foundation to stand on that will cause the house to collapse. So we have a very robust foundation, and it's all based upon what's actually real. At the end of the day, who are you? What are you doing here? Where did you come from? What are you supposed to be doing while you're here? Where are you going? What is this really all about? Because you're a very real being, and you are a soul. Your body is temporary, this body, obviously, but this body is not you, but it's a very big part of you in this existence. And that's why I had to face when my body was going to be taken away from me. It's like, hold it, that doesn't make sense. That's going to disconnect me from this dimension. I'm going to be going to the next dimension, which is okay, but it seems premature. We're here for a reason. Like you said, you've gone through the things, the failures and the victories, which has taught you so much, and you're thankful for both, just like I am. And we're not adverse to challenges. We're not adverse to doing things that might bring a failure that we're going to learn from. We're not going to run away in the desert somewhere and hide and hope till it's all over soon enough. We're totally here to experience all of these extreme challenges from least to greatest and come out the other side being a better being.
Not to shift gears here, but I'm really quite excited. I'll explain something that happened recently. I've been getting a lot more into animation with my solar telescope. It takes hours and hours, like even an animation that's 15 seconds long or so, it takes about 3 hours of capture time. But the last time I was filming, the computer that drives my scope fried on the spot, dead. But in sending it back to get it fixed, it has opened up a door where I'm about to step up how I film. The amount of detail is about to get better. There's a few things that are about to get better, so I'm really excited. And it's ironic that a very inconvenient failure, a costly failure, actually leads to an improvement. And I think it's a prime example. When it first happened, I was so disappointed because I was thinking it took me hours to set up. I've been capturing here for hours. I don't know if I just lost all that data. Now I've got to go box this thing up, send it back to the manufacturer, just everything that goes with it. But within a day or two, I was beginning to realize things are about to get better as a result. And isn't that the way so many things happen in the world? And I didn't mean to shift gears on you there, but I'm just really excited. Yeah, I'm really excited.
In alignment with what we were talking about.
Yeah, I'm just very excited for the solar work of this season. 2025 just seems like such I don't even know how to describe it. You can just palpably feel the change when you're viewing the sun in the way that I'm viewing it, in the hydrogen alpha wavelength. You can sense that the change is just universal. And it feels like we're just right there where big things are going to be happening. So I'm just so excited to be able to be filming and observing in that way.
And it comes back to the paradigm that the greater the intense darkness, the even greater the light is going to keep it away from us and push it away. And the sun is one of the best examples of light chasing darkness away. And right before dawn is always just right before dawn, because darkness is a substance and the light is pushing it and concentrating it so that it's super dark, and then all of a sudden the light comes and pushes it all away. And I think that's where we're at right now in this age. Massive concentrated darkness with the light emerging and going to push it away. And you mentioned soul. I have a friend named Peter Forehand, who's a deep level guy. He's I think he's about 29 years old now. And he journals every single day in tiny little writing that's super perfect. And he's been studying the sun and the Mandelbrot and how they all correlate and how everything in nature is tapped into fractals. And that the original name of the sun is Sol, where we get solar in our solar plexus. Why did they call it that? Our navel and that whole core of our being in the physical world is solar. Have you done any dives into that?
Well, consider you've already done the immediate line to the solar plexus, that energy center. But here's the thing, if you had a boy child, what would you call him? Your son.
Yes.
And you have your spirit and you have your soul. So there's all these words that reference the importance of what I call the light of this world. And that's not a religious jibe. It's a common sense point out that without the sun, this place would be dark all the time. And when you begin to realize, like if you go watch films from Hollywood about the Christian religion, watch how many times they encode the sun, how many times they try to conflate the worship of the sun with the worship of the Savior. I don't think you can find a religious movie that's not doing that. I don't think you can. But when you recognize the importance of the sun, you also begin to realize that it's directly related to our consciousness. And that's why the binary is so important to me. The Vedics described it, but I am of a mind that when the binary comes back, it is directly related to our conscious lift. And when it goes away, when it pulls back away, that's when we experience dark ages like what we've just come through, where wars are common and we treat each other like animals.
Right. Or even worse than animals. I think the worst predator on earth is a human being who has flipped into that dimension of being controlled by these excessively dark forces. They're willing to do things that no human would ever do to another human. And yet they're doing them 24/7 in areas that we don't exist in. But we know that we're on the earth where this is actually happening, as was exposed over the last 5 years.
Well, they've convinced us that war is like normal for us. Like it's not true.
Not at all.
Violence and war is not endemic to our species. And a lot of effort is made to constantly have wars, to constantly make them media negative. All the movies, all the music, all of it is constantly trying to normalize that darkness, and that will go away. In this era that we're coming into, I firmly accept that is one of the many things that will go away. In a higher vibrational era, which is what we're moving into, low vibrational things can no longer resonate. And that's why everything's got to come down now. All these systems, these low vibrational systems, they got to go. And it's not easy. Change is hard. Human beings don't like change. But if you considered like a room full of tuning forks at a really high resonance, and then you brought in a tuning fork to a low resonance, it's not going to ring. All the other ones will ring in sympathy with one another. Mm-hmm. That low vibrational one, it has no purchase. By the truths of nature, it cannot resonate. And that's where we're headed. And so the destruction of all these systems, I think it has to happen.
Right. It's a purging. It's like the Catholic Church says that you're going to have to go to purgatory if you've been a bad person in order to get to paradise. Yeah, that's all dogma, of course. But the purging is now. Purgatory is here and now. And the darkness has to be purged by the light. It pushes it away and pushes it out. And the golden age is upon us. And I think we have to have that, unfortunately or fortunately, you have to have that incredible force against that light in order to make the light shine even brighter so that we appreciate it more. It's just like you would never know the attributes of the healer, the creator of the universe, who puts healing in our bodies, healing on the earth, unless you were damaged or ill. And then you can appreciate the experience of healing. If you're always just perfect and never anything wrong, you would never experience those attributes, just like the attributes of light. Now, the binary sun, I'm really interested in your layout of that. Could you please explain that so that people understand what that binary sun means with the two suns?
Sure. I accidentally filmed the other body in 2015. And like I said, I buried the clip at the time, filmed it a year later, and I did a very low-key release. But since then, other people have spotted it. And since I've been announcing, at the time, I felt like this is going to be in the visual spectrum at the right time. So I started telling folks, if you go out at sunset or sunrise, there's a good chance if there's separation between the two bodies that you can see the other one. It's dimmer and slightly smaller. And a bunch of people have filmed it during the Canadian fires. They filmed it in midday because there was so much smoke in the air down here. It's been seen of times, but back then I wasn't aware that in the old Indian traditions that give us the yuga cycles, which are immense amounts of time, they account for the binary. They also attach it to consciousness. And so right now it spends apparently most of its time hidden behind our sun and lost in the intense glow of the sun. But I have evidence of that, which I've posted up on my website, and I'm waiting for that clear shot when there's separation again, and I can get the high-end tools that I now possess. Part of the problem for me has always been field of view. When I was in San Diego and I filmed all that stuff, people would be astonished to realize what a small field of view I had with that scope. I couldn't shoot west. I could basically shoot a portion of southern sky and sometimes a little to the east if things were high in the sky. Oh, here there's a similar problem. I can't shoot the horizons, and it currently appears like the separation that's more commonplace happens low to the horizon, and as soon as sunrise happens, it tucks in behind. Now, I don't know if this is true all the time, but I am convinced that this year I am very likely to get a shot at it. And if I do, the tools that I have now, I don't think it's really going to be arguable. And by the way, the astronomer from the SLU Observatory filmed it in a live stream in 2016 and commented on it. Said, you're all wondering what that is. That's the second sun, and NASA doesn't want you to know about it. And when I put that information out, I still get emails where people said, oh, we went and reviewed that clip. And he's clearly making a joke. And the funny thing is he was streaming to young people to show the transit of Mercury across the sun. Why would you joke to young people in that way? But to me, it's clear that he's not joking, and he didn't really have a choice. He couldn't get it out of frame. It was so close to the sun he was filming it. It was there. He had to say something. But even with that evidence, people are still just, he's joking. Well, if he's joking, what is that other thing that's on film right there? Oh, that's lens flare, or any excuse they can use. But I am of a mind that the binary will become visible in the new era, and it will be common knowledge because you'll be able to see it all the time. And movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey, that movie was made to try to convince us about the coming moon landing. Well, there's a sequel to that all-important film, that big, massive production film. It's called 2010. And at the end of 2010, there's a long speech by the main guy in that film that says, my children will grow up in a world that has two suns in the sky. When Star Wars, when Luke is on Tatooine, what do they show you? They show you two suns in the sky, but that's what it looks like. One is yellowy, one is kind of red, the other one's a bit smaller. I didn't realize it for years, but when I saw it later, I'm like, wow, that's exactly what it looks like. I'm of a mind that even the MasterCard logo is flaunting that there are two suns and that we don't have any knowledge of it. But if I'm correct, sometime in the not too distant future, it will be common knowledge because it will be visible.
And there's no harm in knowing what's really there anyway. Like, why would people be afraid of it? They would have to change their thinking, but that's the best thing that we could possibly do, is let our thinking be changed by what is actually there. So the fear of it, or I guess people are afraid of just being different than other people. If you say there's two suns and, well, there's only one. Okay.
Consider this. This is actually a big deal on a lot of levels, because what happens to the models of our solar system vis-a-vis gravity if there's two suns? That instantly demonstrates that everything you've been handed is impossible. And if you consider things like the three-body problem or any number of things, it changes everything, really. And it outs that we have been buying into false models for a long time. But that too has become more common knowledge than it used to be, because not that many people believe we went to the moon. Not too many years ago, a lot of people still accepted that we went to the moon. But when you've got people like Katy Perry doing a made-for-TV skit claiming they went to space, it's becoming painfully obvious that this is all stagecraft.
For sure. Well, this goes back to the mindset. Either your mindset's going to be staying in the dumbed down, deceived state, or you're just going to say, hey, I just want to know what's true. I don't want to change my thinking. I want my thinking to be changed by that which we can see evidently. Just the human body itself can replicate. And who designed that? Who designed an acorn that could fall on the ground from an oak tree of the thousands of acorns that fall down? And each acorn has the blueprint within it to fall into the ground and rot and open up and decay and spring up a tree that could do millions more acorns over its lifetime and produce billions of oak trees into the future from one single acorn. And then also the other thing that I get a laugh at is that we were told that over the last 2,000 years, for example, that the population of the Earth just went right along the bottom of the chart. There was never any increase of population. And then for some reason, in the 1800s, people started to have a population increase. When my mom was born in 2022 or 1922, she actually passed in 2022. So she made her 100 years.
Wow.
But there were 2.2 billion people on the Earth. That's what we were told. And now there was 8 billion by the time she passed. But that's never happened before. That's ridiculous. It's happened many times. So where did all those people go? Why did it not just continue to expand forever and ever, which it would do if you don't do resets? There had to be resets. And there had to be cataclysmic events that were created by men in order to have these resets and or acts of God or whatever situation that happened. But there's evidence everywhere of these things. And now the evidence is starting to come out. It's undeniable evidence. But then people want to discard the person who brought it out as if it's that person's fault, when the person was just simply observing and bringing out data. Saying,
That's
this is
funny.
Yeah.
All the time I get that. Like somehow the ownness of all this is I've got to explain it somehow. That's what it was for the lunar wave. That's why I stepped back from it. It came to be like every time something happened, I would be the guy that was supposed to authenticate everything, and I was saying, I'm not the god of lunar waves here. I showed you what I showed you. You could go do exactly what I did. But
Sure.
that becomes the problem, because before a thing is common knowledge, you're right, they tend to zero in on the source.
Well, just like the Mandelbrot set was named after Benoit Mandelbrot, who is by far the most intelligent mathematician that we've ever heard of. But all he did was discover it. He never came up with it. And since then, every mathematician that goes through the same iterative process always finds exactly the same thing. And it never changes. It's always been there, always will exist, always has existed. And it's infinite. So what do people do with that? Why were we not told that in 1980 when it was discovered and made known? Should have been taught in every school around the world. Hey, guys, check this out. But never happened. Just like the calendar, we know that the calendar is based upon the movement of the moon and the sun around us. And it's all based on a time clock. And I started hearing about the turtle shells that have 13 segments in the middle and 28 segments around the outside, which always face to the heavens when they're walking around. And that 13 months times 28 days is 364 days. And the number system starts at 0, not 1. So day 0 is not associated with any, it's just day 0. And then the first day that says number 1 is April 1st. And they tell us that's April Fool's Day. You're a fool if you believe that. But when you go back to September, October, November, December, that is 7, 8, 9, 10, obviously by the names. And January would be 11, February would be 12, March would be 13, April's the first month. And I was woken up. No voice woke me up. I always sleep really good. I usually go to sleep around 11 and I'll sleep till about 5. And on my 6th birthday, which is a weird number again, at 12:30 to 1, somewhere's in there, I was woken up like wide awake. And that was the morning of my birthday. And it was like no voice spoke to me, but all these thoughts flooded into my head about the 13-month calendar, which was changed in the 1500s by some pope in the Catholic Church to go to 12 months. And I saw everything and found out the month which came to me, what it was, Hexember was the one that was taken out. And if you look at the word hex, that witches hex you, black magic hexes you, they made it a negative. They took the number 13 out of apartment buildings and hospital floors because you don't want to be unlucky 13. Come on. What do you mean unlucky 13? Jesus and the 12 disciples was 13 men. There's nothing unlucky about those numbers. But Hexember was removed. And when you put it back in and put 28 days, everything aligns itself perfectly. Yeah, we do have a leap year with an extra day in February for whatever reason that is. I don't totally understand that. I didn't try to figure it out.
Because their calendar doesn't work. Their civil calendar that was implemented for control. And also when they implemented that, they threw out, I think it's 11 days that didn't happen in history. They just chucked them. The story of the calendar is the story of control. And by the way, if you want a month, you use the moon. That's how it's done. Used to be called a month, not a month. That's just the way it is. And logically, we can deduce that if you're in a sane world, you're going to minimally need 3 calendars. You're going to need one for the month. You're going to need the sun one for the year and the holidays, things like that. And then you're going to need a civil calendar for the workings of the world. But what we got was a control mechanism. And you can see how bad it is because 2 of those months are named after men who wanted power, July and August, right? Those are the names of men. And so we're told the first One of the first times they jacked up the calendar was Julius Caesar. But here's the story we're told. We were in Rome, and one day we woke up and the calendar said we were in winter, but it was summertime. And poppycock. You live in an agrarian world where people are planting to live. There's no way that your calendar got that far out of whack. And by the way, you were right. The reason we have April Fools is because when they jacked up the calendar, people didn't want it because they knew better, because they were growing things and they had animals and all the things that tell you the truths of nature. So they shamed them into it by calling them April Fools, because they knew the beginning of the year was at the spring equinox, not in January. So these are all control mechanisms. And again, these are low vibrational things that too must fade away now. In a higher vibrational world that we're heading towards, there's no room for such things. They don't mirror the truths of nature. And the thing about that, you can't invent truth. You can't delete truth. You can either recognize it or fail to recognize it. But even if we fail to recognize it, nature's still providing it. It never ceases to be. It's just our perception that suffers.
I love what you said about the sun calendar, because the only time anchors we have is the shortest day and the longest day, which turns out to be, interestingly enough, December 21 is the shortest day actually on the 28-day calendar, weirdly. And July 7th is actually the shortest day, not June 21st, because they somehow landed on June 21st. But it's actually July 7th based upon the truth of it. So those are your time anchors that you can measure everything from. Even the name of the days of the week is another weird one. Sunday to Saturday, Saturn Day. And Saturn is interesting. There's a whole bunch of weird stuff around Saturn, and you've seen it throughout the media world with the black boxes and the rings of Saturn.
It's controlling. Saturn is binding and controlling. But it also, see, the thing that people forget about Saturn is if we were all perfect, we wouldn't notice the things about Saturn that we currently don't like, because Saturn is a cruel taskmaster. And it's binding. If we were as good as we could be, we would love everything to do with Saturn, but we don't like the cold binding and all the things, the lessons that we learn. But that also relates to a supposed golden age. I think even the king pre-Rome was King Saturnus, maybe. It's the supposed golden age as well. There's so much to all this. But at the end of the day, the calendar is a real shame, because that has successfully separated us from nature, and it's kept us separated. And the little game they play now with the changing of the clock an hour twice a year, that's very damaging, because it ensures you never really get in sync for most of us who have to go to job at a certain time. But they do that right at the equinoxes, right? That hour change comes right at the fall and the spring equinox. And you know what happens. You feel funny for a week or two till you get used to it again. These are all control mechanisms, and the way they are controlling you is to separate you from the truths of nature, which is the same reason we have the word pagan, by the way. Originally, pagan just meant someone who lived close to the earth, or a rural person out there with nature. So what you notice almost across the board is when someone comes in to control things, one of the very first things that starts to go on is the separation from nature. And now that gives you a window into the digital era, because you can't get further from nature than digital. You just can't. If you go to an analog waveform, you have these nice arcing flows in the waveform. The angles of joy could be deduced from that. But when you go to the digital, now we're talking squared off right angles and sawtooth. These are the angles of sorrow, but they have no place within nature. They're completely artificial. And so in one way, to opt into everything digital is to opt out of the truths of nature.
Yeah, that's a fabulous point. Yeah, the gentle sine wave, the flow of what is being created around us. And yeah, the calendars are definitely digital. They're not analog in this age that we're living in. And the time shift, apparently there's many people who die as a result of the time shift.
Yeah,
like they have
heart attacks. Yep, it's true. Yep. Lots of people. And this has been known for a long time. So I ask you, in what world does that become common knowledge and they still do it? They're arguing right now whether they should continue it. It's ridiculous. Even the name they give it is ridiculous. Can you save daylight? We're going on to daylight savings time? No. You want more sunlight, get up earlier. And by the way, there's a limit. Because if you get up early enough, you're before the light.
That's right. You catch the rays of the sun into your eyes when it's coming out over the horizon. And then setting is another perfect time to look at the sun, to stimulate all the circadian rhythms and the melatonin and all those things that naturally we would be very much active during that light time, and then restoring and resting, literally like we die and resurrect every morning. We die at night and resurrect every morning. We do a reset every single day, which is essential. But then the world goes into a 24-hour thing because it's frenetic, and the conditions of the society require this 24/7 thing because of all the emergencies that are going on all the time, which would never be happening if we were in sync with Mother Nature.
Well, even the light of the digital world, for some reason, blue was chosen. So much blue light and all the screen time. And in the real world, in the truthful, natural world, once the sun goes past solar noon, which is really the only noon, your cell phone doesn't tell you accurately when it's noon. The sun does. When it's at its highest point and it starts to travel away from us, the blue begins to decrease until you're getting at sunset. There's almost no blue light left. That facilitates our circadian rhythms and good sleep, but these screens are blaring us with blue, and that interferes with all that. And I know so many young people who have trouble sleeping correctly, and you'll find they're sleeping with their phones, and just so many habits that are really very unhelpful.
And they have to leave their phones on in case they get a call. Then the phone should never be on.
Yeah, I never got that one either, but we remember the landline, don't we? Like the phone was not a 24-hour. The common etiquette was after about 8 at night, you didn't call people unless you knew them. That would be rude. You didn't call around dinner time. Well, what happens now? The telemarketers call at dinner time because everyone's home eating. All the politeness we had within our limited culture has even been undermined by all this.
Yeah, it's just a matter of boundaries and respecting people's boundaries. Even calling a person in their house out of the blue is an invasion of their privacy unless they've agreed and say, hey, call me anytime between here and here, and I'll answer the phone. Then you're not invading their privacy because they're welcoming it. But yeah, telemarketing is such a joke. And it's not a joke. It's an invasion of our privacy. And I think
it's predatory at this point. When I came here to take care of my mother, 90% of all phone calls were people trying to prey on the elderly.
Yes.
So I started putting the number on the block list and everything else, and once or twice it did diminish. But to this day, more than half of all the landline calls are from people trying to prey on the elderly.
Oh, yeah. This is bizarre. My mom, she lived in her own house until she was 99. And then she came and lived here with us for the last year of her life, which we had a total blast the full year because I had the bandwidth at that time to spend every single day with her, which was 2021. And so she moved out of her house and she was staying in a beautiful condo right on the lake. So we're right on Lake Ontario. So I had a chance to really sit down and talk with her about all the stuff that we're talking about, a lot of it. And she was like, wow, why were we told this? Been around for all this time. And when she passed, it only took 14 hours. She had a really beautiful day right up until the very last day. Couldn't swallow her smoothie, had a blood clot released from her left leg and went up into her brain because she wouldn't allow it to be treated. And it just shut her down. 14 hours later, she peacefully left.
Wow.
And amazing experience. I didn't like to see her go. Obviously, when you spend a year with somebody that close, everything around me was talked about my mom. So that took a while to process. She got to live 100 years, see she didn't see the First World War, but she saw the second one. She saw the Depression. She saw the advances of technology. And we're sitting there in 2021 when everybody was getting masked up. And she goes, I'm seeing people with masks on. Are they actually wearing masks? I said, yeah, they're actually wearing masks. She goes, why would they do that? I've never been afraid to be sick in my whole life. I'm not going to wear one of those. I said, exactly. You don't have to wear one. Nothing's required of you. The death mask, I called it, because that's what they cover a person's face when they're going to hang them. And it was like that. And just to have her go, she couldn't believe it. But she had to realize that's what was going on. And she would just sit back and laugh at it. It was just like a cosmic giggle, what's going on. So it's very interesting. I'm sure we could talk for hours and hours about all the things that you've learned and I've learned, and they're very much synchronized. And it's just a matter of the vibrational resonance of the higher vibrations eliminating the lower, like you pointed out earlier, and the tuning of the frequency that elevates us, literally levitation, to get us above all the noise, all the smoke, all the pollution that is mental fog, spiritual fog, and emotional fog that turns into physical fog. So getting the elements in our bodies that are available on the earth that was placed there by the creator of the universe for us to be able to get a great benefit from. And I put a great deal of focus and research into those things over the last 21 years and saw all the energy and the light and the illumination come in. And so now we're learning every single day. I think the more you learn, the more you can learn, the more you can expand because you have a more touch points that are resonating with each other.
Yeah, we live in an exciting time, and I think a lot of people are facing it fear-based, and I think you should try to align. This is an amazing part of history. There's a lot of things that we don't like about it, but to recognize that you're part of it and that change is going to occur one way or the other, and to participate, I don't think there's anything in our known history to compare with what we're experiencing now. And I think even the sun above our heads is going to be demonstrating the truth in that.
And you're either going to be fear-based or love-based. And perfect love, which means complete love, casts out all fear. The old statement, the only thing to fear is fear itself, which is just a complex. So you can discard the whole thing. If you're operating from being afraid, losing your job, whatever, not having money. I learned a little bit about money recently, and I found out that money is actually a living entity. It's an entity that has deep intelligence. It's not paper money. It's not gold, not silver, not crypto, not digital. It is an entity that is looking for individuals who know that you breathe it in like the air and you breathe it out like the air. You don't breathe it in and hold your breath. You don't try to store it in a big tank. You simply breathe it in and breathe it out. And you use that energy to serve others. And the more you serve others with that, the more that entity says, okay, this person gets it. That money's not there, but we're going to give more to that individual. We're going to give them not just one breath a day, it'll be 10 breaths, 1,000 breaths, 10,000 breaths, because they're breathing it out immediately. They're flowing the energy. If we're blocking the flow, try to be a billionaire or something foolish like that, we're interrupting the flow of energy. Just like in classical Chinese medicine, everything is about making sure you don't have energy blocks in your system and getting your energy blocks freed up. And are you familiar with the classical Chinese medicine that does not involve doctors, herbs, diagnosis, or any money transfer where your body totally heals itself?
Yeah, even the other ancillary thing, there was a time when the doctors wouldn't get paid in China unless they healed you. There were some very different views. It was not that long ago when Western medicine made its run over there. I think it was about 20 years ago, I saw a show where they were comparing the healing rate on cancer patients between Western medicine and the traditional Chinese, and it was like a Nova or something like that. So it was skewed. But they were trying to say it was about the same at that time. It is about energy, and I would describe even money is named after energy. It's current sea. Where you go,
Right.
the banks of a river, they contain the current sea. And it's all there, and it's been known by the occultists, and it's been manipulated by these truths. But this is another thing. How does that work? It works because nature is where you find truth, and nature proves what a bank does for a river, or what a river does, or how it flows. So all of these manipulations are based on the truths provided by nature. It's just that for a long time we were ignorant. That was the metaphor being applied.
If a person wants to learn more about all the data you share and the wisdom, where's the best place to find you?
So what I do is everything that I do is on Crrow777radio.com, Crrow777radio.com. I do not post my work on social media. And just to let you know, maybe 2 years after I posted the Lunar Wave on YouTube, I got a notice from them where they informed me that they could use anything I'd ever uploaded to include for commercials. So they made claims on my work, and then they deleted it in 2017. So I don't play that game when I catch up and I realize really what's going on. So the private server that I run holds all my work, provides it to all the membership, and more importantly, it guarantees free speech because you can't say what you want on social media. But where I post my stuff, we say whatever we want, and it's guaranteed because it's a private server.
So people can actually subscribe and become a member. Is there like an annual or a monthly that they can support your work with?
It's $8 a month. We put up 4 shows, but members over there get exclusive access to all my solar work and all the solar stills and videos and other things. Shoot the Moon is free to them. They can stream Shoot the Moon. That's a 2-hour film covering all my past telescope work with all the, I think there's 7 lunar waves. It actually has the discovery of the second sun in that film. But when Jason put it out on the, what do you call it? Like the indie movie circuit, it got 10 awards. The last 2 awards came from India. I think Jaipur, India, and I forget the other place. But it's actually gotten 10 awards, which kind of shows the world is getting to be much more open-minded. When I put that film out, I didn't even think the private circuit would run it. But here we are. They did run it, and it's got a lot of awards.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Okay, all right. Well, we'll wrap right here. I want to definitely have you on again soon so we can keep our conversation rolling.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'd like to wish you a happy, healthy, and higher-minded new era.
Yes. Yeah, likewise. Yeah, make it a great new era yourself. We'll talk soon.
Cheers.